Welcome to the How Soccer Explains Leadership podcast, where we explore leadership principles through the lens of the beautiful game.
Welcome back to the How Soccer Explains Leadership podcast. I'm Phil Dark, your host. Got my co-host and brother-in-arms, Paul Jobson, here with me. And we have our World Cup review, post-match, year-end episode for you today. We're kind of covering all bases today. Don't worry, it's not going to be a 3.5-hour episode. We are going to keep it to a manageable number of minutes for you, but hopefully they'll be packed with just goodness for you today, with just lots of year-end stuff, lots of World Cup. We had an amazing World Cup. It's not regular, not normal if you're not a big, football, soccer fan, that we're going to have a year-end and World Cup review when it just finished. So, but that's what we're doing now. That's what we're doing today. So, Paul, how you feeling? What you thinking about right now, man, after a great game yesterday?
Well, I mean, I know I'm not the first to say it, but probably definitely the best World Cup final I've ever watched. Maybe one of the best World Cup matches, maybe even one of the best football matches I've ever watched. It was just, I was telling somebody yesterday, the sports world always does a great job of hyping big games. You had the young Mbappe against the, somewhat maybe his last World Cup Messi, one of the greatest of all time to play. They're fighting for the golden ball, player of the tournament. They hyped it up, and time after time, the hype always fails. I mean, it always fails. Something happens, somebody gets hurt or it's a blowout or whatever. So you kind of go into this match going, okay, what's this really going to be like? And there is no doubt in my mind that game lived up to all the hype. I mean, Mbappe and France were somewhat irrelevant for most of that match. Argentina was just crushing it. And then next thing you know, there's Mbappe, and it all of a sudden it's a game. So, the hype was there. It lived up to the hype. You had people who were not even soccer fans raving over what an epic battle that soccer match was. And I think for some of those folks, it helped that there were, for a soccer match, there were a lot of goals, and it wasn't a 1-0, and then PKs and all of that. So, I'm still, we're a couple of days past it. I'm still in awe of what we experienced. We had a room full of about 20 people, from 1-year-olds up to 65-year-old people, just enjoying that match. So it was a few days after, still really reeling over what we witnessed.
No, we had a similar deal. It was kind of a lull there a little bit in the beginning of the second half, but then it just started, the fireworks started going off, and we thought it was going to be the perfect storybook ending with Messi scoring the game-winning goal, winning the Golden Boot, Golden Ball, and World Cup, and a little elbow got in the way of that, but that made it what it was. And I actually have been talking to a lot of people about it, and I think that it almost is more poetic for Messi's career, that he's always been such a team player and not an individual look at me guy, to actually have it end with a shootout where they have the whole team, not the whole team, but a good chunk. It's not just him making a shot to win it. It's actually a team surrounding him, because that's what this sport is. It's not about one person. That's why, the media, like you said, the hype, we also, as the media, not we, but the media has to have that guy, right? If it's Messi, Ronaldo, or Kobe, LeBron, or Michael Jordan, who's the GOAT, who's the best? And it's like, it's a team sport. Any one of these players on their own is nothing. They have to have that team around them. And, and they're, individually, they're incredible in what they do, but defenders are never in the talk of who's the GOAT, right? In any sport. So, that's something that I, as a purist, am like, can we just stop with that? But I get it. But to see what they do is amazing, and absolutely love watching. So we're going to get into some of the more details. We're going to talk about our picks and how good or bad they were. Those of you who remember the preview show a few episodes ago, the answer to that question. Best goal, best play. But before we get into that, this is also the post-match episode. And so we are finishing up season 7 at the end of this year 2022, and we had a few episodes. We had the World Cup preview show, which we already mentioned briefly. I also had Tim Ryerson on, and Mike Buchanan, and Paul McVeigh a couple weeks ago, and I just know that I really enjoyed those conversations. I thought for different reasons on each of them, they were just great men doing great things, and also just hearing some of those stories and hearing the heart of those guys. I just really enjoyed it. Those all three of those episodes. If you didn't listen to those, I strongly recommend you going back and listen to them. Whether it's Mike Buchanan talk about how he's overcome injuries and how we can do that too, and how our kids can do that as well. Paul McVeigh with just his cool stories from when he played in the Premier League, but more importantly than that, it's not just about cool stories. It's how he is using them today to help younger players and just their mindset. And we talked a lot about mindset on this show. So to hear it from a player's perspective who played at that highest level and now is doing something about it, I love that. And then Tim Ryerson with Get on the Bus, but also just, he's fighting some personal stuff as well now, and how he's using a lot of these lessons from the game to do that. So check that out. What'd you think just generally about the second half of this season?
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in these in our guests. I think that's probably pretty consistent with all of our guests. But I mean, these are the most recent; they're freshest in our mind. And yeah, I mean, you hit the hot buttons. I mean, you got a guy like Tim Ryerson that's been in the game a long time, and he's you know seen a lot and done a lot and helped a lot of people, and just a lot of what he's learned, he's now giving back. And he's sharing that information with players, coaches, parents, clubs, helping them navigate things that he's figured out and navigated. So I thought that was a really great conversation. And I think the point you also hit of each of these guys, for the most part, having different struggles and battles that they're fighting, have fought through, or are fighting through. I think sometimes we gloss over struggles at times, but I think this season, or this half of the season, I think we had some really deep moments with people that I think a lot of our listeners, if they didn't hear those episodes, should go back and listen to, because I think there's a lot of wisdom in the thoughts and processes of how people are processing real life situations. Whether it's tragedy or injury, or this could be the same depending on how bad it is. But some really great wisdom, and of course with Paul McVeigh, just his playing experience and how he transitioned from this year has been a transition thing for me. So getting to the end of this year and kind of ending with somewhat with a transitional moment from player to sports psychologist, which seems like a big transition, but when you hear him talk about it, it seems very natural, So a lot of wisdom, and it really probably an interview that we could probably go back and do all of these. We could do longer interviews for sure, but I think with Paul, I think there's a lot there that we could probably go back in and dive a little bit deeper into with him as well. So really, I got a lot out of this half the season, and really enjoyed our guests.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope we can go back and dig deeper into that conversation we had with Paul, especially not the other two. We could go on and on and on, but I know that was also a shorter interview than we normally do, and it was for various reasons we had to do that. But I read through his book as well, and even just reading through that, check out that book. I mean, The Stupid Footballer is Dead, if for no other reason for the title. I love the title, and unfortunately I don't think The Stupid Footballer is dead, but I do. There's a lot of really, I mean, great stories. Each chapter takes a specific player. Most of those players, even though they're all a decade or so. It was I think released in 2012. So, they're ways back. But I remember these players and some of the stuff they did, and talking about what we talked about on that. But also, for our young players who have dreams of playing pro, he goes through a really good list of the pros and the cons of playing at those levels, and some of the things you think about and other things you don't necessarily think about. You talked about leaving home, but you also talk about, like you're sacrificing relationships and friendships, and you can't build into those because it's a year-round deal. You're gone, and as he said, you're dispensable. All those things that are life lessons that we typically don't learn at the lower levels. You might learn some of those, but typically the people who are going in that pool to play pro have always been the best. They've always started. They've always been on the different fields playing most of the games. And so to have that, they don't care about you when you're washed up, right? Like it's done. It's over. And that's hard to deal with. And so to hear it from him, how he's done. We have a couple other guests talk about that too. But yeah, loved all those episodes. So one of those episodes too was the World Cup preview show. And I know, Paul, you wrote down all of our picks. And, I filled out all the answers at home, and I did post that yesterday. And I know that you responded to me, at least, saying that that's exactly what you picked, but I knew that was just a flat out lie. And I'm sure that our viewers would remember back as well. But if I remember correctly, I know I missed, and I think you did too. Oh no, you picked one of them. You picked Croatia to go through, but I picked Canada and Belgium to go through. So I had an entire group that I just missed both of them. I mean, you'd think you could throw darts and get better on that one, but I what you think just generally? I mean, we talked a little bit about it. We touched on it, but going into this World Cup, obviously a lot of controversy, a lot of, corruption to bring it to Qatar, a lot of the migrant worker issues, a lot of the other things. And unfortunately, there was a tragedy with, Grant Wall, but that seems to have been cleared of any wrongdoing or anything at this point, as far as what we know. But with all of that, what do you think about the playing on the pitch, that all of that stuff, but not the time of year, all of the middle of the season, all of the problems, all the issues that we could focus on. And we did focus on some of that in the first in the preview, but I want to wash that aside and say we had, in my opinion, you talked about the final game. I would say one of the best World Cups I can remember, as far as the drama, as far as the upsets, as far as the just amazing play on the field. And that may be one of the good things about doing it in December, is that a lot of these players are in form. But I don't know, what'd you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was probably one of the best cups I've seen in a long time. I think there were some great upsets. I think I had said it maybe on one of the podcasts we did, but the fact that you're not able to fully predict the teams that are going through, I think, makes it a great World Cup. You've got teams that are rising to the occasion. You got teams that are kind of falling off maybe when they shouldn't. I mean, look at how Argentina started the World Cup. It was a loss to Saudi Arabia, 2-1 loss to Saudi Arabia. And of course, as we do, we're like, oh, well, Argentina's done. I mean, right. I think that's where we all went to, right? And they go on to, find their form. And I think that was a great story within itself, of just that team, and that the pressure that I'm sure they all felt to lift the trophy with Messi, and really stumbled a bit at the beginning. But then some of the other teams that surprised us as well that went through were Morocco, the story of Morocco. I mean, that kind of the hero, I think the hero of the cup. And I thought they did what they needed to do to win games. I was really impressed with their fight. And so I love a World Cup where you get to learn about new countries, about new players, about there's not new history, but you're learning history of teams maybe you wouldn't have known about, and not just having the regular customers day in and day out. So I was really blown away by the World Cup this year. And I mean, every major tournament's going to have its controversies and its issues, but once we get past all that, I think that the game itself and what it's meant to do, I thought brought the world together in a lot of different ways, which is what I think some of its greatness is. And we saw a lot of news stories rise to the top, and a lot of legends walk off with trophies.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it was a storybook ending. It was what they wanted. We got an Argentina-France final, which a lot of people were wanting from the beginning, and I thought it was a very, I mean, it was a great, incredible, dramatic game that had everything in it. Controversial penalties that you're still going to hear people arguing about till the end of whatever, not calling a couple penalties, different things happening. At the end of the day, it was just amazing, and I think the right team won the game yesterday. At least they outplayed France, but I think England outplayed France too, I thought, but that didn't go the right way for it, because they missed, the second pen, whatever, all these different things. That was an interesting thing too, even seeing Mbappe step up for a second penalty, and thinking of Harry Kane and how he missed his second penalty.
In our house.
I mean, who wasn't thinking that, right? I think if you watched, you're just like, the same guy stepping up. And I was like, why did they have the same guy step up? And Mbappe says, you know what, I'm going to put it in the same place all three times, and hey, come and save me, right? Like, good luck. And that's the good lesson for, I think, our youngsters too, is pick your spot and hit it there. Don't overthink it. Just, and could Martinez have saved one or two of them? Yeah, but he didn't, because it was hard. He hit it hard, right? And how about Messi's PK in the shootout? It was like, are you kidding me? Like, he hit that about a mile an hour, and
I
it just
wasn't sure
trickled
it was
over the
going to go over
line.
the line.
I
Yeah, I wasn't sure
know.
it was going to. I'm not sure it met the back of the net even.
Dude, and Lloris is just still gonna have nightmares about those PKs because he probably could have. I mean, he definitely could have saved the first two, and he probably could have saved all four of them.
Yeah,
But he didn't save any of them, and then Martinez
yeah,
makes two just clutch, or the one clutch and then miss. And it was so just dramatic, obviously, and people are like, "Oh, it was fixed for Messi." It's like you guys have no clue about the game if you're
you
saying
can't
that.
fix
It's
that.
like
You
you
can't fix
cannot
that.
make that crap up. The Netherlands
Uh,
game in the 100 minute, whatever, 100 minute, going 10 minutes of extra time and scoring with that direct kick in the Netherlands game. I mean, that was
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
And then having the Argentina just pounding the goal for 5 of that extra time and just couldn't put it away, hitting posts,
Mm-hmm.
hitting this. And I mean, it was just so amazing seeing Brazil and how they were just that South Korea game. You thought, man, this is just unfair. They're men among boys out here. And then
Yeah,
have a Croatia team just do what Croatia does and squeak out a win that nobody was picking them for, right? And they just
no,
did it.
no,
They just kept doing it. And to see that's another guy that just always has flown under the radar. Yeah, he got the golden ball in the 2018, but I still think Luka Modric is, he's always going to be one of the best just teammates, team play, like a guy who is a
yeah,
leader that I think we're going to be looking back at him over time, and he will stand the test of time as one of those players that was just. I mean, he just does what he just wins with team, and he helps teams win. Look at him at Real Madrid, but he never has sought or been in really the spotlight. Even when he won the Golden Ball, he wasn't in.
yeah,
No one talks about it. It's just like, oh yeah, Mojo. I mean,
no,
they do, but you know what I'm saying. The people who know talk about him, but even then, it's a short conversation because he's so unassuming. He never seeks it. Neither does Messi, but
yeah,
Messi, Messi's just Messi. So,
yeah.
but I think if Modric plays at a different time, I think he's one of those guys a lot more people are talking about. But he didn't score, he doesn't score a ton. So people are like, well,
Mm-hmm.
he can't be a great player if you don't score a lot.
But you look at those, you look at those teams though that either are full of superstars or they just have those one or two players that can really put them over the top. And I think that's Modric with his team. I mean, Croatia's a good team,
Yeah.
but I think you take him out of that team, and I don't know that they're having the success that they have. It'll be interesting to see how they do moving forward. I'm sure they've got some good young players, and I'm not discounting them as a whole, but I think they are, because of Modric, they're obviously better than they would be without, because he really holds that team together. He's not seeking spotlight. He is seeking, team first and whatnot. So I'll be interested to see how they play out moving forward. But he definitely is one of my favorite players, and was in the last World Cup as well. He's very unassuming and
Yeah.
doesn't demand the spotlight, and probably would just rather not have any of it, from what I can tell.
He
But
kind of
I
reminds me
enjoy
of a
him.
young Paul Jobson.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. I could see you with that hair. You could pull it off.
I could do it.
Yeah. I think you
I could
should try that.
do it.
Marcy would
Maybe
appreciate that.
there'll be a goal for 2023.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's been fun. It's been a good one. So with that, let's go to a few of the just the kind of from your perspective, from your opinion, what was the best goal of the tournament and why?
You know, maybe this isn't fair because this may be just really fresh on my mind, but I think Mbappe's goal in the final, the the volley. I mean, that was just
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
where did that come from? I mean, it's a world class goal from a world class player,
Yep.
in a moment that you have to make a play like that. And I just think it kind of all came together. And there were some other goals like that too. There was one that the Brazil had that was kind of similar, and it's a great goal. But I think the magnitude of that goal, how it was scored,
Yeah.
the impossibility of that. It takes that kind of player to score that kind of goal in that kind of moment. So for me, that was probably one of my top. It's probably the most fresh on my mind too. But for me, that
Mm-hmm.
was probably the best goal that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I go back and I said it when he hit it. And I agree. I actually that the couple of the goals yesterday in the Messi's in the 100 and whatever 105th minute was another one. Just it
Yeah,
wasn't it was just, they rise to the top, and it was a scrappy goal. But the Richarlison goal at the beginning, I posted right when it happened. If there's a better goal in this tournament, I can't wait to see it. And I would say the ones, yes, a couple of those yesterday came really close, but that goal was just, when you're a fan, to see him hit it pure on the laces after he pops it up. Now, unfortunately, he did come and say afterwards it was a bad touch that popped it up like that, but it looked like he just did that. But even adjusting the body, moving it, doing everything that he did to do that scissor kick, pure
Phil,
upper corner.
it's harder. It's harder if you mistouch it to hit a
That's
ball
true.
like that. Because
That's
if
true.
you do it on purpose, you've
Yeah.
planned it. It pops up. It's exactly where you want it, and you hit it. But if it's a bad touch, he
And you
made
have
an
to adjust.
adjustment
Yeah,
on the
that's true.
fly to
Yeah,
hit that. So I'm going to go back and say, hey, it makes it even better that he
that's
took a
true.
bad touch and made it a world-class goal.
That's right. That's right. Even better. Even better.
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of telling my son, see, that was amazing. That's what you got to do. But that's the thing too, is a lot of you can't. That's what I tell my kids all the time. Like, hit the ball, hit the shot. If you have a shot,
Yeah.
take it. If you miss it 9 times out of 10, you make it the once. That is a 1 in a million goal there that we saw with Richarlison.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he hits that same touch at that moment to hit it that pure, not hit a player, not have a defender come into it, not get knocked off your balance, not have someone. I mean, the fact that he had that much time was, whatever, but
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. No one expected it, because it was, they were probably just defending, waiting for it. So that was my top goal of the tournament. And now we're going to go to the best play, which is different in that it includes more than just a goal. So, and I thought the one yesterday, I'll do this first. And the one yesterday, I thought there were a couple of them, but there's two that tied for first for me. One was Messi's no look pass through 3 guys. Two, I forget who he was, even 2, because it doesn't even matter. He put the ball on a dime through 3 people, not even looking. And you watch through the play, and it's like, when did he even see the runner? Yeah, that's the thing about Messi, that you watch and you're like, this dude has eyes on the side and back of his head, I swear, because he's constant. And that's what Guardiola said in the special with Messi, was he's always scanning the field. He's always looking. He knows where everyone is, and he knows where they're going, because that's what he does. And that's what makes him so special. And that's what I've been talking with people about. The difference between Messi and Ronaldo is Messi has never relied on speed, strength, just insane moves, all this other stuff. He's relied on just being really smart, and smart gets better with age. Whereas the other stuff tapers off with age. And he's, Anyway, so that was one. The second, and it was another Brazil goal. It was another Richarlison goal. It was the one, the 3 headers, or I think he did 4 headers in a row. Boom, passed it, overlapping, didn't take the ball in the second pass, went through, and then popped it. I mean, that was just your brilliance and beauty. That's why it's called the beautiful game. And that's why the Brazilians their play coined that term, because they do stuff like that just make it look so stinking easy. There were a few other goals those 4 goals, I think, in the first half of that South Korea game. The pass, you remember that pass where I forget who it was. I think it was Vinicius Jr., but it was one of them was coming down the left, and there's a whole mass of people in the middle, and he just dinks a pass over everybody, volley, corner, and you're like, that's so hard to do. And he made it look like it was this easy, whatever, just a Sunday morning league that we're just going to play. That's what it felt like. Anyway, how about you?
There are so many times in this World Cup that I'm watching, obviously, like you're watching with your kids, and you're just like, how did they do that? And it was multiple teams. There were a lot of different teams, but especially, Brazil, Argentina. And I mean, Argentina in the first half of the France game, you're just like, oh my gosh, like, how are they doing this?
Right.
But the one play that has stood out to me through this cup was, I think it was in the Argentina Croatia game, and I think it was Alvarez. Alvarez had 2 goals in that game, and he had a standout game in that match. But I think it was Alvarez against Croatia, where he got the ball from, I think, Messi just over midfield, I think, and dribbled, I think, 40 something yards and scored. I'm like, that, okay, you don't see that at the international level. You don't see somebody have the confidence to take the ball like that and just drive at the goal and get one-on-one with a keeper and score. You don't see that. But his ability to hang on to the ball, went past 3 or 4 different players, to never lose his cool, to just, and he's going as fast as he can. I mean, he is driving at that goal as fast as he can, keeping control of the ball with people diving at him, and he's able to tuck it away. I thought, to me, that was just one of the few times you just saw individual greatness from a player that wasn't Messi or wasn't Mbappe. It was just, I mean, yes, Alvarez is a great player. He proved that in this cup, but it's like, okay, who was that? Oh my gosh,
Right.
that was Alvarez. That was amazing. And I think even so, that one stands out to me for sure. And then the final, some of those goals, a couple of the Argentina goals, where they're knocking around, you find the open player on the back post, things like that. It just, some of those, you're just like, man, how do they see all that? But that one, I think it was Alvarez.
Yeah, it was
against Croatia. I thought that was just like, that one just keeps coming up in my mind as like, okay, that you just don't see that at that level. You don't see that. I thought it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the other thing about that goal, I mean, first of all, they had, the defenders, like how none of them touched it away. Like you said, he was going full speed. They like nicked it and it hit off his foot just right. And then he nicked it, hit off his chest, didn't hit his hand, didn't hit his arm. I mean, all those things that you watch, the perfect storm happened in that goal. Cause normally you'd see that ball hit off his arm rather than his chest or something. Cause it didn't hit him. It wasn't like, it hit him. And it wasn't like the Sun goal where he dribbled through everyone a few years ago for Tottenham. Because that one, he kept it on his foot. This one was like all over the place. And you're like, how does he, going back to that body control, as you said, when it's harder when it's not intended. So those balls were hitting off all different people. But the other thing about it was that I think a lot of people don't realize that how hard it is. And I give a ton of credit to the referee in that play too, because Messi got destroyed after his pass. Or at least looked like. I mean, he got hit for sure, and I don't know if he made a meal out of it or he got destroyed because no one cares about that anymore. But the referee didn't call it.
No.
To not call that and keep advantage when the guy had 3 defenders between him and the goal, and the other guys were trailing a little bit, or one guy was ahead, but the other guy was trailing. And then I know people have talked about this a lot. The Argentina dude on the right cutting in and taking a defender just that slight second so that Alvarez could keep going. That's why it was a play and not just one dude doing something. Messi got the touch to Alvarez. The referee didn't call it. A lot of stuff has to happen in that for him to be able to have that run and make that incredible goal. So I totally agree.
Let's make sure that, we talked a lot about these attacking players, and you even mentioned defensive players don't really get a lot of credit. I'm going to go to Argentina's goalkeeper Martinez with the save that he made to save the game.
Yes.
That, I think, because of how great it was for Messi and Argentina, that play has almost been forgotten. And it's sad because that he doesn't do that. We're having a different conversation today. I mean, that saved the game, and he didn't have to really do a whole lot the entire game, but that, really, really created the opportunity for them to continue on to be able to hoist the trophy. So I want to make sure I don't overlook how huge that play was for Argentina in the World Cup.
Yeah, good job on that, because that also almost resulted in a counter that could have won the game. I mean, it did result in the counter, right. And if he hits that header on frame, it does that. Could you imagine that finish? That save. I mean, whatever. But again, I'm glad how it ended. I hate that it was a shootout, but I do like the fact that it was team. But I think that save did 2 things. One, it saved the game, yes. But it also, as a keeper, I know, gave him the momentum going into the PKs and got in France's head too. Like, he's on. We better put this right in the corner or we're hosed. And by the way, he saved Van Dijk, to kick off the other one. But Mbappe still steps up and, drains his 3rd PK of the game in that first PK. Like, so that he overcame a lot of people just crumble in the hype. And that dude is a hat trick. And again, 2 of them are PKs, and people will, but to make 2 PKs in a game, we know is hard. We talked about that. So anyway, all right. Well, I know we could do 3 shows on the World Cup, but we're not going to. And I do want to say, because the first preview show got criticized by a friend of ours. He's not a friend, but I don't know him. I'm not saying he might be a friend at some point in our life, but I don't know who this is. But friend in Tunisia who was upset about the preview show because it didn't go into detail. That was on purpose, we didn't go into super detail because it would have been 4.5 hours. I can talk for sure.
Yeah.
And Paul has so much wisdom. He could have gone on and on about it. And we would have been even more wrong if we would have gone on a lot more. So I'm glad we didn't. This is also not a comprehensive World Cup review. It is something that we are doing that. And I'm glad we did. It was fun. That was fun. All right. So now we have, we're going into our year end review portion of this episode, and we're going to do our top 3 episodes from 2022, which is so ridiculously hard, by the way. This is like the most unfair thing to do to us. But I'm going to start with you because then I can piggyback on your 3 and then do 3 other ones. And so what do you got?
Okay. So what's crazy is I was trying to do it from memory, which I don't have the best memory to begin with. So I started flipping through and I went back to the beginning. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
yes.
Are you kidding me? Like,
I know
some amazing episodes. But the ones that stood out to me the most is I kind of did a personal review. David Rika, for sure. If you're just tuning into what we're doing and you've not heard that episode, go back. I'll just throw this out there. He is a 9/11 survivor in one of the towers. If that doesn't hook you, nothing else will. Just listen. He is an amazing human being and what he's doing now. Dan Abrahams is just, I mean, we've talked about him a ton. He's just full of wisdom. He thinks he's dumbing things down for everybody, but he's still so much more intelligent than all of us. But he's got so much and then I'm going to give 4 actually, because there's a tie for the other 2 and they're not necessarily in order, but Brad Miller, what they're doing with their organization is phenomenal. I always love talking to those guys. And then Jorge Vallejo, I thought that was just a really, that's hits me. It kind of goes along with a lot of what we do with Warrior Way Gives. And so I threw Jorge's interview in there as well, but really hard because there were some just really, really amazing interviews over this last year. So those are my 3 that turned into 4, Phil.
I like it. I like it because you set the precedent to have a tie for 4th or for 1st because it's not necessarily in that order. So my top 3 might be 4, depending. Actually, those, 2 of those 3 were on my short list. I'm not going to say, or 2 of those 4 were on my short list. I'm going to say which ones were not. They're all amazing episodes. I love it. I actually just used the Vallejo episode as one of our year-end emails for Providence World because I thought it was such a good display of why we do what we do, and to be able to highlight people like Jorge who might not otherwise be out there and on our radar, to be able to meet them. And I do want to shout out, we're going to get him on the show in 2023, but I want to shout out Sean Smithson for giving me several of these recommendations of these interviews. We wouldn't have had these men and women that we had on without Sean. So thank you, Sean. He's working with FCA, one of the national guys with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, if you're not aware of them. So check that out. So my 3 in no particular order, Daniel O'Neill. I just loved the conversation I was able to have with him about just the physical revolution, the physical identity, the PE revolution, the physical identity that we need to bring back for our kids. I think it's so important. And a lot of us forget that that's an issue if we have elite athletes in our homes and we have children who are playing soccer or other sports all the time. We forget that we have an epidemic in our country, and it's starting to get to other places where kids just aren't active anymore. And it's causing many, many problems. So to hear that from a guy who knows what he's talking about, not just me like complaining about it, was really, really good. So, if that's something that I think we should give that episode. He's talked on some other podcasts too. So I'm not saying just this. He has a few books out there too. But get that in front of your PE teachers. Get that in front of your other teachers and people who have something to do with how schools are run. Because one of the things he talked about was, have 10 minutes, 15 minutes of activity before every school day. It'll get the kids' brains going. Some of the other conversations we had with people over the course of the year talked about, gut brain connection and other getting brain going. And if we don't do that, we're gonna miss out on a lot. So notice I didn't say the name of the person with gut brain connection because that would have been another episode that I would have in my top 4. So I did not do that. Yeah. That was end around. He is a part of our family, and I just cannot get over the fun we had with Horace Richardson.
I knew that would be one of yours. It was a good one.
Just the 50 years of stories that we had on that. Just fun. I mean,
hey, by the way, I did get my book. I don't know if listeners know that. Horace actually did send me a copy of the book.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
True to his word, which I did not doubt. But
Yeah.
our listeners are probably wondering, hey, did he actually send Paul a book? He absolutely did.
I'm
So
sure he did right when you sent that to text. So, and
yeah.
he, to hear how you almost lose a dude in China, and like how many coaches can almost lose a dude in China and laugh, like, and now you can laugh about it, but he was probably like, all right, it'll be fine. Like, I know Horsewell, he'll be here, so go back and listen to that episode. I'm just going to tease it. I'm not going to tell you what happened there. And then I got my tie here too. George Blameau, guy doing some really cool stuff in Liberia. And it's just like-minded. I feel like we're kindred spirits because he's got his book on, all the different life lessons from the game that he actually teaches in his soccer practices with these young men and women over in Liberia. And just, you guys, a lot of people, if you haven't traveled the world, like, you don't understand how critical this is in these countries around the world to have people teaching about life through the game, because these kids are
Mm-hmm.
playing. They go out. That's all they do a lot of the times. And a lot of them, most of them don't have dads.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have intact families at home. Their moms are working their tails off. Their moms often have multiple, lots of kids, and they're just
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. A lot of these kids are in orphanages. And you don't have men like, and women as well, but I'm just in this case, men like George Bulamo doing stuff like he's doing. They have no chance.
Yeah.
And so that just really, I love that conversation, and to see how God's used him to now like be ambassador to the UN and like doing all these cool stuff because of his, because of what he did on the field. Like, you look at it and everyone's like, oh, national team Liberia, who cares? They never make the World Cup. Well, a lot of kids care.
Yeah.
Because of that platform, he's been able to do what he does. So that was super cool. Love that. And then, my fourth, and again, if you notice the way Paul and I are driven, I'm driven by fun, right? So that's my driver as a high I personality. I'm driven by fun. And one of my most fun conversations, you know what I'm going to say here? Do you know what episode? Like the most
I thought
fun?
horse was going to be your most fun
Yeah,
episode.
that was fun, but think, you'll know when I say it. Think about
Yeah.
one of those fun guys that we've had on all year, and he happens to share a name with me. So
Yeah.
Phil Smith, and what's been really fun is behind the scenes, I've been getting texts from Phil from Qatar, because I feel like it's almost like a Saturday Night Live skit. Remember those old ones with what was Al Franken, when he'd be like, have the camera on his head? I think it was Al Franken. He had the camera on his head and he was like reporting from
Yeah.
Iraq or whatever, like the
Yeah.
war zone, and he'd have bombs going off behind him. It would go to staff. I felt like that's what was going on. I don't want to get him in trouble, but he's taking videos as he's driving down the Qatari highway, and all he was live from Qatar, and
Yeah. It's funny.
he was at the games. I think he was at the final. He's like, I go, what'd you think of the PK? He says, well, I don't know. I didn't have a good angle. I'm like, oh, the problems of watching it live.
Totally.
But just the stories he has, and just, I mean, a life that is just crazy, and how he's so light about it and fun, and he just takes it as it is. As I always say, I kind of follow the breadcrumbs that God puts down for me in life. And I feel like that's what Phil's been doing. And that's why, we call that Take the Meeting of that episode, because that's basically his story.
I think we've mentioned this before with Phil, and I love that interview as well. But we've talked about getting him on again. Like, I just think he's somebody that should almost be a regular, if not once a year, a couple times a year, just to see hey, what are you doing? Where are you? What are you
Totally.
What are you doing?
Totally.
Let's
like, right.
It's catch up with Phil, see what's going on in his world. I think that would be fun.
He'd be for it for sure. And I mean, the funny thing about that interview was, there's so many funny things about that interview. So if you haven't listened to it, go back. You'll just have a good laugh for sure. Like, he's just such an amazing, fun dude. But even before that episode, even, he says, oh, by the way, did I tell you? I just got all, European and Middle East rights to Nerf, and I'm like, what? No, you didn't tell me that, but of course you did, because why not? And he's like, oh yeah, I got this place in Manchester we're building. It's going to be like the Nerf experience, and he shows me all the plans and that happened like in the couple months before we had, I'm like, my gosh. But yeah, that was like a little like, oh yeah, by the way, did I tell you? That's, whatever. That's Phil Smith in a nutshell. So
That's
super fun. Those
one.
are my, and there's so many more. And that we had. And I do want to say I did have one, and I don't want to, it was part of my short list. And I do want to say, because for no other reason other than just those the numbers we have, but we didn't have a female on this list. So I'm going to make sure that I did mention Kara Bradley indirectly, but also Cheryl McCormick. That was the first interview of the year. And I really enjoyed that. Cheryl's doing a lot of really great things. Really enjoyed that conversation we had with Cheryl. So that definitely made my short list as well. And yeah, and actually we're going to we kicked off 2022 with an amazing woman, and we're going to kick off 2023 with an amazing woman. We've interviewed that. I had that interview already too. So I will tease season 8 kickoff with that.
23 is already shaping up to be another great year. No doubt.
No doubt it will. No doubt it will. So now we're going to finish off with a couple things. The first is one or two recommendations, like recommendations for 2022, book you read, something you watched that just sticks out. And I know it's so hard because there's so much that you've consumed over the year. But what do you got?
Yeah, it's been a long year. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just been we're at the end of 12 months, and I think that there's a couple books that have stood out. The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry is one that we read earlier in the year that really kind of set the tone for kind of what our year looked like. Ending of last year into this year, I would say. Maybe I read that last year. I don't even know now. But another book I'm reading right now, it's called Range by David Epstein. And it, we talk a lot about specialization in sport. David Epstein in this book kind of goes through the pros and cons. I won't say pros and cons even, but he talks about specialization. He talks about guys like Tiger Woods, and he talks about other guys that have done multiple sports. He talks about Vincent Van Gogh. He talks about it's just a really, really great read as it pertains to how people find their interests or how people find the things that God has really blessed them with in their lives. And a lot of it's not specialization and tapping into it at 4 years old, but it's going through things to learn what it is that your strengths and weaknesses are in life. So anyway, I'm not all the way through the book yet, but I'm reading it now. I put it away for a while, picked it back up when I was in Spain. I picked it back up and started reading it again. But Range by David Epstein is kind of where I am right now. But Ruthless Elimination of Hurry was a really, really great one. And I'm going to give a recommendation on a marriage devotional by the Luskos. The Luskos have a great marriage devotional out right now that Marcy and I are going through that has just been really, really good as well. So that's kind of out in left field a little bit, but we talk a lot about marriage. And so I want to throw that out there. That's one we are getting some good stuff out of, Jenny and Levi Lusko. So that's me, man. That's what I'm throwing off into launching into 23 with.
Well, and that's a good kind of microcosm of you and your life. You got, you're really busy. You're pouring into your marriage, and you got just really pouring into bringing wisdom into how you can do all those things really well, which is what we want to do here on this show, right? So I love it. Totally. I love it. Love the recommendations. I'm just going to stick to the people out there, since you did some books and people have reading enough for the next few months. Well, since people don't read as much, if you do audio, you can pour through books like I'm able to when I'm walking or going to the store or whatever. I've been reading, like I said, I've been reading a lot of fiction this year for whatever reason. I'm just so busy that I'm just going to learn how to do storytelling better by listening to a lot of fiction. But I'm not going to talk about books right now. I will say, although, we mentioned the Stupid Footballer is Dead. I don't just say that, by the way. I read a lot of books of different guests that I've done over the years, and that book was really, really good for people who like this show. Really, really good. Mike Buchanan's book also is really, really good. And Daniel O'Neill's book is really, really good. Daniel's a little bit thicker, but those other two are quick reads. You can get through them, and they're quick and they keep you going. So check them out. And Paul's book's free on his website. So there's no reason not to go grab that digital copy. But the videos, I just mentioned one recently, is FIFA Uncovered, man. That movie is such a great lesson in how not to lead. Those 4 episodes, it's 4 hours. You can fly through it. It's fascinating on Netflix. And, especially now that this World Cup's over, so that you can't get mad about, I'm not going to boycott the World Cup. No, just go watch that for how not to lead and how corruption can seep in and how corruption can be there from the start. And if you're not watching for it, or you're not paying attention, or people aren't holding people accountable to actual standards, things can happen real fast that aren't good. The other one, and now I'm blanking on it. What was it? But anyway, it'll come to me. But all the, literally any All or Nothing. I've talked about this before on the show, but I've been watching the Arsenal one this year. And, I wish they'd do one on like the team that I have followed since I was a little kid in Manchester United, but they haven't done that one yet, probably because they haven't had a stable enough coach to be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I don't think Ten Hag's going to be all fired up about it. Maybe he will. It'd be fascinating to see what happened this year.
Get Phil Smith on it. He'll make it happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But seeing Arteta, I really like the way he connecting with his players and really like the way he's, talked about. Everyone talks about players as numbers, but I got to see him as people. And like little quotes like that throughout that you don't just throw out there, like that means something. And I can tell that, hey, the proof is on the field this year. Oh my gosh, that team's playing as a team, right? So good for Arteta to do what he's doing. It hurts me, it pains me to say it. If my brother's listening to this, he's gonna ride this. Both my brother and Matt Bernard, they're gonna be like, see, you're an Arsenal guy. No, I'm not. I never will be. But like same way when I watched Pep on the Man City All or Nothing, like the stuff we can learn from those, good leadership, things that we could go, I don't know about that. Take the good and just chew on it and keep for it what will help you in your different walk. And so those are the big ones for me from this year. I know there's one that I'm forgetting, but that's okay. That's enough to keep you busy for a while, just those all or nothings. And then a fun one, I just watched the first two episodes, Welcome to Wrexham. Have you heard of that with Ryan Reynolds and McInerney? Like they're the two guys who bought the team over in
I've heard. I want to see that.
yeah, it's on Hulu, and I just started watching the first couple episodes. It's just fun. Ron Reynolds is a funny dude, but it's a serious thing. They're not doing it for a publicity stunt. Like they actually care, and they're going in, and it's really cool. It gives a really good glimpse into. Kind of reminded me of watching like Sunderland Till I Die, or the Salford one. Just seeing these smaller teams in England that we don't normally get to see. So that was it. So the last one I did remember. Rise and Shine, Jada Merritt. We did talk about that on his episode.
Oh, yeah.
So that was another great episode. But Rise and Shine, that documentary, especially for young players to see overcoming adversity and resilience and just working your tail off for something you really want. Great show. So go check that out.
Absolutely. Those are good. Those are good.
So, all right. The last thing we're going to do here is just, we did talk about Warrior Way a lot. We talk about the different things that I'm doing a lot throughout the year, but we don't really go into what we're doing deeper than a little, plug at the end. And so I wanted to give you just a chance. This time last year, you were, doing kickoff fundraisers and you were doing different things to get Warrior Way going. And now it's been a year and I've, some really cool stuff's happened. So can you just give a kind of 2-minute version of what's going on with Warrior Way? And we'll obviously have the links to that as we always do, but just to share with our listeners, like what's actually going on and what you're able to do this year.
Yeah, for sure. If you're familiar, there's two arms of Warrior Way. There's warriorwaysoccer.com is the website, and there's a soccer training side of it that we do here in our local Waco community. And then we have a nonprofit side of it. It's called Warrior Way Gives, which is also you can find on that website. But what that's doing is taking what we consider our for-profit opportunities and giving it. That's why it's called Warrior Way Gives, and we're giving it to the community that maybe can't afford it. So we've got some programs in the last year that we've created. We've created these festivals where we're going into, kind of some underprivileged communities in the Waco area. And we're giving these soccer opportunities to these local communities where we're coming in and we're doing soccer training, we're sharing the word of God, and we're sharing a meal. It's basically food, football, fellowship, basically is what it comes down to with these festivals and these little local communities in Waco. And partnering with some churches as well to maybe do some long sessions like we do up here in our other communities. And we also have a partnership with some special needs folks here in town. We're able to employ some special needs community people in our soccer community. They're former soccer players that aren't given opportunities within what we're doing here in Waco. And it's just an amazing opportunity, not just for them, but also for our young people to engage with the special needs community. So it's not so, such a shock to these things together. And so there's a few things we have going on here in Waco. And then if we have our partnerships in Guatemala, Marcy and I are actually going back here in January to visit with our partners down there just to see how things are going. We're sponsoring some tournaments in Guatemala where we're bringing kids from about 4 or 5 different villages together to share, again, football, faith, and food together for these tournaments. And some of these kids, I think I've mentioned before, it'll be the first time they've really even ever left their village ever. And we're providing soccer cleats and uniforms for them to have a real tournament. They'll have an opening ceremony. They'll have trophies. They're competing, but we're sharing the word of God too with them in these moments as well, putting some great people around them. So those are kind of the 2 minute, maybe a little less than 2 minute version of the things that we're doing. You can find out more obviously on our website, but we're really encouraged by what God's shown us this last year and what he's encouraging us to do in 2023. We're going to double basically all the things that we've done this last year. We're going to double all those things in 2023 and feel really, really good about what God's already provided for us in those areas. And then in 2023, we're also looking at some other things that we're looking forward to announcing as well, hopefully in the next couple of months that God's providing that we're not quite ready to announce yet, but some really encouraging things coming down the pipeline for Warrior Way on this side of things.
Yeah, for sure. And you can follow Paul at Coach Jobson on Instagram and other stuff to see some teasers of some of those things that are probably coming down the pike. I'm just making some assumptions there, but some travels that Paul gets to do and get do some really cool partnerships. And so I'm very excited to see what God's going to continue doing in and through you and your family, and it's just been fun to be able to do this with you for another year. So I'm excited to see what 2023 is going to bring. And the short version of what we're doing, Providence World is the nonprofit that I've had the privilege to be able to run over the last 13 years or so, and we've done a lot of different things. And the last couple of years has been a lot of fun. That's what this podcast, has led to a lot of work with different sports ministries, different things going around the world to be able to connect sports ministries with orphan care ministries, and talking about like George Blamo is a perfect example of that, and being able to help the sports understand how to care for the orphan and the vulnerable with excellence, and how to help the people who are caring for the orphan and vulnerable with excellence incorporate sports into what they're doing. And I had a guy a couple months ago, to give you a good little snapshot, is he said, "Hey, I have a field. We have about 1,000 kids that come every week, and I don't know what to do with them. And can you help me with that?" And so he's in Uganda, and I was able to help him connect with another person from Uganda. So they're in the process of, and I'm helping them through that process of just building trust with each other to be able to collaborate and do work together, so that field is not just a field of people just, running around doing whatever, which is fine. Kids playing, yes, but to have purpose, to have play with purpose, and to be able to, incorporate sports, and maybe even have those, elite athletes come and give those kids, some goals, and be able to say, hey, there's different things we can be doing. Because a lot of these kids are without that security at home, without those people at home, like most of us have had who are listening to this, who have people telling you at home how much they love you and how you can do anything that you put your mind to, and how you have amazing gifts and talents and all those things that, seem like we take for granted. We're like, yeah, whatever, mom, whatever, dad. But a lot of those kids have no one pouring into them like that. And so to be able to combine these different organizations together, that's a big part of why we exist. You guys have heard about the disc training that I'm able to do. We were able to continue doing that this year. If you are a coach out there that wants to get involved with that, reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you about it, and see how we can incorporate that into your work. Coaching the bigger game, we're still figuring out how to best get that out there. I've actually and modified it a bit this year as well with my soccer team at Folsom High School. With our leadership team, I'm able to kind of modify it and take the coaching principles and put it into, hey, how can we train up the players on how to be better leaders? And they're eating it up. I love it. I love that they're just wanting to learn. They're wanting to be better leaders. And these are 14, or I guess they're probably 16 to 18-year-olds, because we're doing it with the juniors and seniors. And so it's something for the younger players to look forward to as well, which is really cool. And I've just been on just so excited to see what God's going to continue doing through all of that. And we are still planning, we're going to get the Coaching the Bigger Game program out there. We just got to figure out the best way to deliver it, and the best way to get it in front of people. And hopefully that will be coming up in the next few months. And so no promises there, but again, if you're interested in that, love to talk with you about how you can get involved and how we can get it out there better. So, all right, man. Any parting thoughts as we finish up 2022?
No, I've been encouraged by all that we've heard over the last year, and obviously Phil, a lot of what we've been able to do with Warrior Way and just our transition. Appreciate your support and all that you've done for the Jobson household, just through prayer and support and talks and conversations. Your 13, 14, 15 years plus of experience definitely helped me for sure. So I appreciate that. And as we transition to 2023, I'm excited about what God's going to put in front of us, and just appreciate doing this with you, man. I appreciate all of our listeners that come alongside us as well, and hope they are continuously encouraged by what we're able to put out there. So appreciate you, man, and looking forward to the new year for sure.
All right, folks. And as Paul said, we do appreciate you, listeners. I appreciate you, Paul, very much. I appreciate the listeners. I appreciate everyone that makes this possible. I mean, that's definitely you for listening. And it's also, as we've talked about, share this with your friends, share this with your family, share this with people that you think will be helped by these conversations, whether it's parents of kids, whether it's coaches, whether it's, like I said, PE teachers. I don't know, there's lots of people who can benefit from this, leaders of organizations who have teams under them. These are principles that apply everywhere. And so, with all that, we will have all the different links to Warrior Way, to Coaching the Bigger Game, to Providence, all these different things where you can, partner with Warrior Way. You can, both of us rely on donors and people giving. And if you want to be a part of that and you want to take the opportunity to give, you can do that at Providence World website, at the Warrior Way website, and we'll have those links on our show notes. And so go do that if that's something that you feel led to do. It also helps, keep this podcast going, right? We can't do this without, your support in that way too. So we don't ask that very much, but that is there. And I know it's year end. So if you're looking to give, you can do that here. You can also do it after the year if you listen to it then. But we appreciate you. We thank you. And we hope that you're taking everything you're learning from this show and you're using it to be a better spouse, a better parent, a better friend, a better leader in all that you do. And you continually remind yourself that soccer does explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great week.